Folks, how are you guys doing now? Getting ready to jump in another quick video. I'm actually going to be talking about the Mayans. Now, first and foremost, guys, I hope you know the Mayans are actually descendant from the Atlanteans. I know a lot of people are probably going to laugh at me for this, but I'm giving you guys the truth here. And if you guys do your due diligence, you see that what I'm saying is true. There was after the Atlanteans, their civilization was basically collapsed, which is basically the Atlanteans were a civilization of people all over the world, and they lived basically along the coastline. A lot of their civilization was basically based on shipping route and so forth. Very advanced civilization. Now, after the Atlanteans collapsed, the Atlantean civilization was created in Central America called the Atlan. Sorry, the Atlan. 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 Atlan is actually a civilization from Atlantean. The Atlan was around before the Mayans came about. All right. Now, after the Atlan, that civilization crumbled. The Mayan came about, guys. Now, keep in mind the reason why in history we have civilization coming about and crumbling is because our solar system go through a rebirth. Our Earth go through a rebirth, and every time this happens, guys, we have a sudden, drastic reduction in human population. Basically, that civilization that used to dominate at that point come to basically a halt, an end, whatever you want to call it. Same thing. Now, I'm talking about the Mayans, but I gave you a little bit of history on it, letting you know that the Mayans are actually descendant from the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans are actually like 3 cycles back, which is each cycle is 3,600 years. After the Atlanteans went down, came the Aztecs, and the Aztecs and the Atlans are actually tied to the Atlanteans. Now, the Mayans it's a civilization that's coming from the Atlan, sorry. And the Atlan is a connection to the Atlanteans. I hope that makes sense. But guys, researchers have basically found a lot of evidence that pinpoint that the reason why the Mayan civilization was basically the reason why it collapsed is because they went through a serious climate change, and it's literally started close to 3,600 years ago, which is basically at the end of the last cycle. Now, they use cave to basically get this data because what happened, water drip in caves, and a lot of these water have sediment chemicals, and it drip to the ground, and a lot of these sediments and chemicals are built up, and they study these layers of sediment to know the drought, the time when these drought happens, and it line up a lot of it. What with these sediment show basically there was a period in time. And these caves are actually located where the Mayans used to settle over there in Central America. Now, these caves show a time, 3,600 years ago, where there was a period of drought for a couple of hundred years, guys. Yes. So during this period of drought is when the collapse of the Mayan civilization happened. All right. Now, during this time, they stopped building monuments. They weren't building the stuff that they used to build anymore, because at this point, if you can't find food to eat, you got to do whatever you got to really start to think about the necessities right now. So at that point in the Mayan civilization, finding food to eat was more important, than building monuments. So the reason why I'm bringing this up, guys, and I don't mean to like I'm coming off topic. I'm really not. I'm just elaborating a little bit, giving some information to leading up to what I'm saying. Basically, the same fate that reached the Mayans is basically the same fate that's going to reach us. We're going to go through a period of time where we're going to have severe drought, and we're going to have a hard time finding food. Now, when this happened, and I do believe it already started, because it's a change. What happened during that time, basically 3,600 years ago, when the fall of the Mayans happened, is that there was a shift in the weather pattern, rain, drought. Something drastic happened to our planet. And if you're paying attention, you can tell at this point something drastic is happening to our planet. So because of the research that they did for the Mayans and figure out why they basically collapse and disappear off the face of the earth. I'm just going to go on record and say that we're basically facing the same future. I just want to say this as calmly and as nice as possible. I'm not trying to spread fear. I'm just here to make people aware, to let you know that the reason why the collapse of the Mayans happened 3,600 years ago is because they really didn't have much food to eat. They really wasn't accustomed to the climate change that was happening at that point on the planet. Now, fast forward to 3,600 years later, us humans, we paying attention to what's happening to our planet. We're not accustomed to the changes that's happening to our planet at this point. You can tell that summer is getting hotter. There's a drought period that's happening to our planet that we're not used to. We can see that. We're also getting weather patterns, which is hurricane storms on a level and flood on a level that we have never gotten before. So guys, looking back at what happened to the Mayans now and the demise of that civilization. Basically, the demise of the Mayan civilization happened at the end of the last cycle 3,600 years ago. You see what happened to the Mayans at the end of their cycle, last cycle? Now go back to the Atlanteans. You see what happened to the Atlanteans at the end of their cycle, that advanced civilization. So, seeing what happened to the Atlanteans, seeing what happened to the Mayans, and it's basically the same thing that happened to both of them, that basically took down both civilizations. Weather pattern, drought, climate changing weather on a level we have never seen before. Now, fast forward 3,600 years later to us humans, what do you think is going to happen? It was kind of cool seeing this information that after I got my hands on this information and I read the article, I was like, wow, researchers have actually pinpointed the demise of the Mayans, and this is the reason why they disappear. It's a lack of food. The Mayans didn't have food to eat because they weren't accustomed to the condition of the planet, what it had turned into. They went through close to 200 years of serious drought. Think about that. 200 years of barely finding food. What do you think will happen to a civilization if you're going through 200 years and you can barely find food or plant food? You're going to have a serious reduction in population, correct? Yes. So what do you think is going to happen to us? So this is why I keep saying to folks, learn to be self-sufficient. Get ready, guys. The ride is going to be interesting. Very interesting. And trust me, what happened to the Atlanteans, what happened to the Aztecs, what happened to the Atlans, what happened to the Mayans, it's the same thing that will happen to us modern humans, because everything is in cycle. The earth is always recycling and forming into something new every couple of thousand years. And every time we come to the end of this cycle, population of humanity reduces drastically. And we're at the end of the cycle. So I just want to share that information about the Mayans and the reason why they were basically vanished off the face of the earth. Because of the lack of food. That's it. Ciao. And thank you so much for always watching my video.